What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Sony FX30 and the two lenses that I think are some of the best options that you can go with. These lenses are going to be great for video, whether it's going to be for YouTube or other projects that you're currently working on. Now, when you pick up the Sony FX30, you do have the option of getting the Sony 15mm f1.4, and honestly, that's a really great option. But if you don't have that kind of money, these two lenses are going to be some great alternatives. One in particular, which I've always really loved for the Sony FX30. So let's kind of just get into what these lenses are, who they're best for, pros and cons, things like that. Now, the very first lens is going to be the Sigma 16mm f1.4 DCDN contemporary lens. Now, this is a beautiful lens. It's very sleek. It's easy to look at. It's just a really great lens. One of the reasons why I was drawn to this lens is because it has sort of a wide field of view. So if you compare the 16mm lens with a full frame equivalent, because of the 1.5 crop on the aps-c camera that is the FX30, it's the equivalent of about a 24mm lens. And 24 is a really nice wide angle for video. And so this lens is going to be best for people who are doing talking head videos like what I'm doing right now. If you're shooting vlogs and it's kind of run and gun, if you want to create cinematic establishing shots, right? If you want to show the scene, right? It's going to be great for that. It's also a decent lens for doing interviews if you want to kind of go for that more environmental feel for your interviews as well, because it is going to be capturing a lot of the background as well. Now, there are a few pros for this lens that I really want to talk to you guys about. The first, of course, is the fact that it's an f1.4 lens. Now, that means that we're getting a lot of light into our Sony FX30, which is exactly what you want when you're shooting video. You want to get as much light in as possible. And of course, with the f1.4 aperture, you're able to get a nice blurry, creamy background, which is exactly what you want when you're shooting films. And if you are shooting something that you want to have, you know, that really cinematic sort of feel to, what is a cinematic video if it's not, you know, including some bokeh in there, some blurry background, right? That's one of the other things that I really like about this lens. Now, let's just talk about a con for this. And it's actually a con that you'll find with any wide angle lens. And that is that there is some distortion depending on what you're actually going to be filming. So if you get really close to this while you're recording, things can get a little wonky, right? Because yeah, it's a wide angle lens, right? It's meant to be a little bit further back, capture things, not to have you really close in. And then aside from that, when it comes down to video, you know, this lens is a great lens, but when it does come down to video, there aren't any aperture rings on this lens, which could be really good if it did have it. But again, at this price point with this type of image quality, it really is going to depend on you and whether or not you think it's something that you absolutely need for video. It really does kind of come down to your use case with this lens. But if you're using it the way that I talked about, I think that you should be fine. Okay, so let's talk about the next lens, and that lens is still on the FX30. I didn't take it off. But that lens is the Sigma 30mm f1.4 DCDN contemporary lens. Now, let's talk about this lens. This is a great lens as well, and this is actually a lens that I picked up after the 16mm lens, and I'm going to tell you a few reasons why. But first, I'm going to tell you what I actually love about this lens. Now, when I compare it to the 16mm lens, this lens, because it's a 30mm lens, which is about a 45mm equivalent to a full frame lens, this one kind of punches in a little bit more, and you're getting an image that is going to be a little bit closer to what we actually see as humans in terms of our field of view. And that can be really useful depending on the shots that you're going to be using it for. Now, what is this lens best for? Well, it's definitely going to be best for talking headshots. Now, I know I said the 16mm was good for talking headshots. This one is also good for talking headshots, but there's a difference when you're shooting with the 30mm versus the 16. With the 30mm lens, you're getting in a little bit closer. There's a lot more compression in the video, and it's just gonna create a nicer, blurrier background. It's gonna bring the background a little bit closer in as well. So things in the background are gonna look a little bit larger, but it's just gonna look really, really nice compared to a wide angle lens. And keeping that depth of field, right? Because you're also getting f1.4, getting a lot of light in and things like that. Keeping those things in mind, this lens is also really great for creating cinematic B-roll, right? Because you're getting that nice compression, you're getting that nice depth of field, and you could just really get some good footage out of this lens. It's also great for interviews as well for the same exact reason that I talked to you about. And it does punch in a little bit more. You don't have to worry about the background quite as much, but you're getting that full person in frame. You're getting them in frame, and you can just really create, again, a nice image with this lens. So the pros for the 30mm lens is that you are getting more of a cinematic look to your videos because of that compression we talked about. It's gonna be a little bit more flattering on faces as well. So talking head videos, interviews, things like that, it's gonna be a lot more flattering. There is not gonna be that kind of distortion that you're gonna encounter with the 16mm lens we talked about. This lens is great if you're trying to get a lot of bokeh in your shot. It's great. You're not gonna be disappointed at all. That's another pro for it. Now some cons, again, this is all relative to how you're gonna be using this lens. The first con might be that it does require you to have a little bit more space in your environment, right? We talked about the 16mm being great if you have a small, kind of space that you're working in or YouTube studio or wherever it is that you're working in. But the 30mm does require a little bit more space because it is a little bit tighter than the 16mm lens. And so now that I've shared these two lenses with you guys, I want you to start thinking about how you might use these lenses and which one might actually be best for you. So when it comes down to it, if you're working in a small environment, if you like that wide angle look, if you want to have more of the background in your shots, then you should definitely go with the 16mm lens. If you are someone who has a little bit more space, you're not gonna be doing any vlogging where you need those kind of close-up shots. You're not gonna be doing as much run and gun, but more so just kind of sitting down, talking to the camera, doing some cinematic B-roll, then the Sigma 30mm f1.4 is going to be the better option. And one of the things that you wanna keep in mind too, as you're building your lens collection, is just go with what makes the most sense for you right now that you can see in the future that you're gonna be using. And then as you start to film a bit more and start thinking about the different kinds of shots that you want, then you can start adding on other lenses that are gonna suit your needs more. So when it comes down to both of these lenses, pick the one that you feel is the most versatile for you as well. If you found this video to be helpful, definitely hit the like button for me. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, definitely hit the subscribe button. I make videos on gear reviews, cameras, videography, editing, photography, all those kind of things. So if that suits you, definitely hit the subscribe button for more videos. I really appreciate you for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next video.